Hi there, another update on Jasper Jones, Chapter 4. We come near the end of Chapter 4 after after Charlie has played some afternoon cricket with his friend Jeffrey, and they've sort of mucked around a bit. And as he comes back in from that idyll, that sort of perfect summer participation of Australian youth cricket in the street, the news is on that uh, they're still looking for this girl, and the family are reacting to it, and the town are reacting to it. And this news is so big that it's superseding any news about the Vietnam conflict, which in 1965 was still sort of brewing, probably less so than it was later in the 60s and early 70s when it got pretty vicious. Nonetheless, it's done deliberately to counterbalance the values of what's happening in this town and how localized news sometimes will take over the international because it's much more immediate, much more impactful. And of course, for Charlie, it's huge because it's something that has a direct involvement in. He still maintains his silence, and of course, this leads again to a problematic assertion from the reader as to what we're dealing with here with our narrator. He is very flawed because this what he's doing is a criminal act, a very massive criminal act. In fact, it's to maintain a silence when he knows exactly where this dead body is. It's pretty poor actually. What happens is we still get into in chapter 4 a rhythm of this novel which seems to work in terms of the first half of each chapter is active and things happen, and or we have characterful situations where there's interaction, and then Charlie goes away and thinks, and pontificates, and responds, and so the second half of each chapter, in the early stage of the novel at least, seems to be these internal monologues, internal essays. And it's interesting because if we do a comparison to this novel and To Kill a Mockingbird, there's a key difference, and that is our narrator's age. Charlie's 14, and with all due respect to teenagers, um, a teenager questioning a world around him just seems like petulance as opposed to innocence. When Scout is questioning the world and saying, look, I don't understand the Tom Robinson, I don't understand Boo and all this, and please help Atticus, I don't get this, that, and the other. She's a little girl, she's 5, 6 years old, and that innocence is manifested in that character and then given to us as an innocent response. It's almost like a boy in the striped pajamas idea that there's an innocent creature who needs to see a horrible part of the world and learn a bit more, even though that novel's a bit of an apologist novel for German behaviour in the war, so I'm not a big fan of that either. Um, but here we have a teenager who isn't innocent, and his act in the first chapter is anything but an innocent act. It's a loyal act to Jasper. It could be considered a brave act to Jasper, and his silence is even braver when it comes to the manifestation of it causing problems in his family and his personal life. But it's not innocent. And so there's a completely different feel to this, a much darker, more gothic feel to the novel. Um, and then you get these moments here. This is a whole, this, a whole paragraph of rhetoric, a whole paragraph of rhetorical questions. Why is the world so bad? What kind of world is this? Has it always been this way? What is it that tips the scales? So I don't understand. What kind of world could it? It's almost like a bad punk song, written by a bunch of preteen or early teen kids in a school concert in Year 8. And so it's a bit concerning when he is questioning the value of life in his town and the universe and all those sorts of things when he's participated in a very immoral act in terms of how we might look at it. And he is playing the victim card here. But that's how things work. We keep over here and it becomes very precise. Laura Wishart got hit. She's dead. She really is. I buried her. I touched her while she was warm. I carried her. And they're out looking. They're out there now. Police news. And they'll find us. And this leads to obviously a crisis in his own identity and a crisis in the self. As the chapter continues, he only has one way out, and that, of course, is to get Jasper Jones back into the picture. He's been absent from this novel for the last 3 chapters. And then he shows up. And this opening part of chapter 5, he doesn't come, and then he does. It's not great writing, I'm sorry. So the novel here obviously strikes a change in a moment, a lean forward moment for us as a reader. Comes to the window, reflecting and framing, of course, what happened in the first chapter. Apologies for the pun about framing windows, but there you go. And then, of course, nothing much had happened since everything had happened. And he goes back through sort of like a summary. This is previously on Jasper Jones, Doug Walters debuted in a test. For some reason, they were fans of Doug Walters before his debut. They must follow state cricket. Mother was irritable, father was concerned. He finished Pudd'nhead Wilson, the Mark Twain novel, started Innocents Abroad. I didn't have to dig any more holes. So we get everything that's happened in the last 4 chapters underscored, put under a line. This is done. Now we're moving into a new phase of the story, and we're going to resolve, hopefully, some of these key issues. So as you keep reading, really put a mark between chapter 4 and 5 as a turning point of the novel, and where the novel changes tack, and go from there. And look at also where in Mockingbird that happens. And that happens when Scout and Dill and Jem give up, essentially, on Boo Radley. They forget him. He goes into the background, and they focus on Tom Robinson, and they focus on their father's court case. And the novel starts to really take on a new perspective. It moves away from being a novel about childhood to a novel about life and society and prejudice. And this one moves further away here from teenage petulance into a more active premise. Enjoy.